Hi, everyone, and welcome to our data briefing on youth in schools. My name is Alice with the Lucille Packard Foundation for Children's Health, and I'll be moderating today's briefing. A few housekeeping items before we get started. The briefing will be recorded and archived on our website and shared with all registrants via email. Our briefing is scheduled for 30 minutes, but our speakers will be staying on to answer questions, so please be sure to enter them in the GoToWebinar question box. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's briefing. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Tom Hansen, Program Director of West Ed's Health and Justice Program, which works to strengthen the capacity of schools and communities to provide the supports, knowledge, and skills all people need to succeed, especially those in the most challenging circumstances. Tom also directs the California School Climate Health and Learning Survey System, which is the source of data that we will be focusing on today. Also with us is Dr. Lori Turk, Senior Manager of Data and Research at the Lucille Packard Foundation for Children's Health. She oversees kidsdata.org and ensures that the data and information on the website are high quality, relevant, and user-friendly. She also works with researchers and advocates across California to address key children's health issues. We will start today's briefing with Dr. Hansen, who will provide an overview of how the data was collected. Dr. Turk will share some key data findings as well as how you can access the data. We will then open up the briefing for questions. So let's get started. Welcome, Dr. Hansen.
Thank you, Alice. As Alice has just told us, what brings us here is the announcement that new data has been released on kids' data. I'm just going to spend a little time describing the data source, and then Lori is going to take over and run us through the types of data that are on kids' data, some findings, and describe how the data can be accessed. So these data come from the 2013 through 2015 Cal Schools system. Cal Schools, which stands for the California School Climate, Health, and Learning Surveys, is the California Department of Education's whole child and school climate measurement system. The system is designed to efficiently and cost-effectively provide school districts and their partner communities with local data, which can be used to improve student academic performance and the social, emotional, behavioral, and physical health of all youth. So the survey system is comprised of three interrelated surveys: a student survey, a staff survey, and a parent survey. If we can go to the next slide, that'd be good. Great. So the next slide. So the Cal Schools system has a lot of appealing features, way too many to describe here, but I'm just going to give a little snapshot. The first is comparability. Each of these surveys contain parallel questions so that users can compare results across students, teachers, and parents to gain a more complete picture of stakeholder perceptions and how the perceptions of students, teachers, and parents differ from each other. I must say, a lot of times folks look at the data and they're quite surprised by how discrepant student and staff perceptions of the school are, which is always very, very interesting. The survey system is designed to be flexible to meet multiple needs. All three surveys can be customized by combining different modules or by adding questions. So here's how it's set up. The student survey has a core module, and that module is required of everyone taking the survey so that data from a standard set of questions are available for all participants across the state. The core module contains questions about school climate and safety, student engagement, student supports, bullying, and substance use, just to name a few. New this year is a question about sleep duration on school nights. In addition to the core module, there are topic-specific supplementary modules that assess other areas in more depth. Just a few examples: there's a school climate module, a physical health module, a social and emotional health module. There's a gender identity and sexual orientation-based harassment module, and a safety and violence module. And there's even more. So it's a highly flexible system with sort of a standard questionnaire and supplementary modules. Not only are there these fixed supplementary modules that districts can add, districts can create their own module with their own questions or with the questionnaire items from WestEd's extensive item bank. For the data release we are talking about today, these data come from the 2013 through 2015 student and staff surveys. The 2015 through 2017 state report is available at calschools.org, and we expect to have those data publicly available on the Kids Data site and broken down for California regions and student groups by August 2019. Okay, very quickly, other features include the following. The survey content is comprehensive, and it measures 4 of the state priorities on the local control and accountability plans. It measures 14 different areas of school climate, 3 areas of pupil engagement, 3 areas of parental involvement, and also includes items assessing student, staff, and parent perceptions of the quality of their school facilities. I think Lori's going to provide even more details on the content. Also, the survey items have been extensively psychometrically validated, and I will describe in the next slide. The survey has been extensively used and can be used for comparisons for the state as a whole, counties, and districts. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, this top portion of this slide describes the extent of use of the Cal Schools survey between 2013 and 2015. As you can see from the top row of numbers, the student survey was administered in 690 school districts, served by about 4,700 schools. A little over 1 million students took the survey. Just for some context, there were about 1,000 school districts in California and 10,000 schools. So almost 70% of districts participated in the survey. I should also note that participation is up. It has increased in the later periods. It keeps going up. 425 districts participated in the staff survey in about 2,700 schools. There were about 72,000 staff respondents. For the parent survey, I only have participation data for the parent survey for the 2015-17 period, but you will see that about 20% of districts in the state administered the parent survey in 2015 through 17 in almost 2,000 schools. That's about 200,000 parents provided responses. The parent data are not included in this data release. Again, the data release comes from the student and staff surveys administered in 2013 through 2015. Okay, next we want to talk about the Cal Schools biennial survey. So although the Cal Schools system is designed to provide local data for local use, for many years, WestEd has been contracted by the Department of Healthcare Services to administer the secondary student survey to a randomly selected statewide sample of schools. So this provides results that are representative of the state as a whole, which can be used by school districts to help interpret their own results. So the statewide student survey results released on Kids Data come from the Cal Schools biennial survey, not the locally administrated survey. So these results are representative of the state. The county and district student and staff surveys come from the aggregation of local district data from the surveys. The county student data, when available, have been weighted to represent the student population in each county. So they should be representative of each county. That gives you a little flavor of the Cal Schools and its extent of use. I think I'm going to pass it along to our next speaker.
Thank you, Tom. That was very informative. Next, let's welcome Dr. Turk to talk more about the data.
Thank you. And before I get started, I want to thank Tom and WestEd for their partnership to bring you these data. And now I'll share the types of data that are publicly available, a few key findings, and how you can access these data yourself. Next. We have data across these topics that are listed here, and there's some areas that I think we're particularly strong in, and those are alcohol, tobacco, and drug use. We have the level of usage overall, and also specifically for alcohol, cigarettes, and e-cigarettes. Bullying, we have bullying for any reason, and we also have bullying for specific reasons. Emotional health and suicide ideation. including feelings of depression, school climate, and this gets into academic motivation, carrying adults at school, building resilience at school, and much more, and school safety, which includes perceptions of safety and also carrying a gun to school, carrying another weapon to school. So that highlights the topics. And on the next slide, we do break down the data in several ways. As Tom mentioned, we do have the student level data and the staff level data. For the student level data, we have it broken down by grade levels, 7th, 9th, and 11th grade, and also for students in non-traditional programs. We also break down the data by gender, school connectedness, parent education level, race ethnicity, and sexual orientation. At the staff level, we have data for elementary school, middle school, high school, and for non-traditional programs. Next. We provide data for regions in California, for all of California, and also at the county level and school district level. Keep in mind, we don't always have data for all the regions of California. It just depends on sample size and us being able to provide reliable estimates for a particular area. Next. I'd like to share some data highlights before we dive into where to find the data. And the areas I'm going to be focusing on for data highlights is in bullying, emotional health, and pupil support services. And each of those, I'll show you an example of one of the breakdowns that I mentioned earlier. And then after we're done with that, I'll do a live demonstration on how you can find these data yourself and customize to exactly what you want to see. Next. Repeated bullying and harassment directly impact youth and emotional well-being. For students that are bullied, the definition of it is anytime in the past year have they been bullied or harassed for various reasons. Reasons include bias, disability, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, and sexual orientation. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the figures, we have estimates for bullied overall, and also for these reasons that are listed on the right side of the screen. 39% of 7th grade students reported that they were bullied or harassed in the previous year for any reason. And these percentages dropped to 30% in 11th grade and 28% for non-traditional students. School connectedness is associated with student behaviors and outcomes, and about half of the students who feel low levels of connectedness reported being bullied in the previous year. And this compares to students who feel high levels of school connectedness. It's 28% of those students reported being bullied in the previous year. And next page. Depression-related feelings could be one serious consequence of bullying and an impact on educational well-being and outcomes. Depression-related feelings here is defined as, in the past year, feeling so depressed for 2 weeks or longer where you aren't doing your regular activities. We see that about a quarter of 7th grade students experienced depression-related feelings in the previous year, and these percentages increase across the grade levels. And for students in non-traditional programs, nearly 4 in 10 students were experiencing depression-related feelings. One of the largest disparities in rates across student groups is by sexual orientation, both in this indicator, but across just about all the indicators that we're seeing in the Youth in Schools group of data. It's been quite shocking to us to see these findings for LGB students. And so at Kids Data, we were so moved by these findings that we've developed an issue brief specifically on this population of students, and we expect to release that next month. Here we see that 61% of students who identify as LGB reported having feelings of depression in the previous year, compared to 29% of straight students. So about twice as many LGB students were reporting depression-related feelings. Other indicators that we have that are in this topic are students are well behaved from the staff perspective. mental health is a problem at school, and school emphasizes helping students. Also, in another topic that's related, we have suicide ideation. Next. Now let's look a little bit on the solution side. How well are schools addressing troubling behaviors and outcomes? And a part of supporting students is drawing on all the resources that are at your disposal, particularly when faced with limited funding within the educational system. So one way to go about it is to collaborate with community organizations. Here I'm showing findings at the elementary school level, since supporting children when they're very young, it might prevent some long-term issues, but certainly providing services and collaborating at all the levels is very important. Here we see that 22% of school staff strongly agreed that their school collaborates with community organizations to address issues with students, and 34% agreed. So just over half overall reported that collaboration seems to be happening to some extent. This could be a missed opportunity for some schools to make more out of limited resources that they have to leverage external resources. Just a quick note here, if you are in a school or a district that you think collaborates well with a community organization, either in general or with a specific community organization, I'd love to hear about it. This is something that I want to dive into a little bit more deeply later on. So please email me if you think you have a great collaboration going on with your school. Other indicators that we have that are related are counseling and support services and services for substance abuse. And related indicators and other topics are school emphasizes, this from the staff perspective, school emphasizes helping students with emotional and behavioral problems. School provides adequate health services, and substance use prevention education is provided at school. Next. So now we'll start with the live demonstration, and there are two ways to access the data. One of them is through the WestEd site, and that's Query Cal Schools, and the other one is through kidsdata, kidsdata.org. And both of these websites, the same data underlines both websites. So you can pick whichever access point works easiest for you. You'll get to the same data. So to help motivate this live demonstration, help direct it, I do have a question I'd like to know more about, and that is, what are students' perceptions of school safety? So we're starting here. The first piece that I'm showing you is the WestEd site, and this is Query Cal Schools. And you can find the data that you want within a particular category of data and click into a topic, and then you can come to the indicators here. The other route, kidsdata.org, is right here, and this is the home page. So one approach to be able to find the data is to enter the particular indicator or type of data that you want to find in the search bar. However, I'm also going to show you the full list, and that you would find by going into kidsdata.org/youth in schools. This will bring you to a full list of the indicators that we have on the website for you to access. This includes all the topics that I've talked about previously, as well as some additional pieces such as access to services for children with special health care needs. So you can scroll through to see what you're interested that's useful to your work. One piece that I want to point out is that we do have a very large school climate section. This is an area that we're going to explore a little bit more deeply in a webinar that we plan to have in January. So stay tuned for that information. For that webinar, as I mentioned, LGB is a student population that is a particular area of concern. And so we'll be talking specifically about LGB population and experiences with school climate. So stay tuned for January, announcement to be out later. So what was our question? The question was, what are students' perceptions of school safety? And so here we have it here, the school safety category. And so we'll click into perceptions of school safety. We get to our data page, where we see the table that in California, across the grade levels, around 20% of the students were feeling very safe on their school campus. Now, we can customize this data to get more specifically what we want to look at. And we do that by clicking into the top gray bar. And here we can customize. For example, perhaps we want to look specifically at ninth grade. Ninth grade can be a particularly difficult year, being the newest grade in high school, so many older students on campus. So it could be an area where perhaps you don't feel quite as safe. And level of safety, let's look at just very safe. We do want the best for our kids. We do want them to feel very safe. So that's the place where we really like to see the 100%. So we'll submit this, and then we'll see that, as we saw in the previous table, 16% of ninth graders feel very safe on their school campus. Perhaps we want to see how the counties rank. So if we click on the percent sign, we'll see a quick ranking that among the counties with data, Lassen County had a lower percentage of students who felt very safe compared with the other end. We've got Mariposa County at 33% among counties with data. Just a quick note on notation, S is for suppressed. This means that there was insufficient data for reliable estimates, and NA means that there's not data. There's no data available. Now, let's say you want to find out more about your county specifically. If you are from a school district, if you want to find out about a school district specifically. So we do that over here. I'm first going to clear it, so we start from scratch. And I'd like to compare to California, and I'd like to look at a school district in Alameda County. So I find it here, but I also want to compare to the county average. And so I get that information right here. So you can go through to find your county, your school district, just select the county, and then you'll find your school district listed. Another piece that I'll point out at the top here is the change indicator. If you do want to see a data for a particular breakout that I mentioned earlier, you find it under here. And so you can select that the breakout that you want, submit it, and then you'll receive data for that particular breakout. I do want to mention I'm not doing a full walkthrough of kids' data in terms of all of its functionality. That would be a subject of another webinar, or we do have a recording in our help section of our website if you wanted to learn more about full functionality. So what I'm pointing out here is just specifically for the youth in schools, what would be useful to you. Always important across all the indicators for sure is the definition, source, and notes. Always good to review. It's at the bottom of all the tables, and you find it here. So you can read through what the definition is, an example of how the data could be used, and the data source, and footnote. In the footnote, I highly recommend reading that section, because if there's something important to understand about the data, or perhaps there's a caveat, then this is where we would put it. So make sure that the data is being used accurately, you'll want to read through those pieces of information. I mentioned that we would put caveats in there. If there's something that causes serious concern about the data, then we don't make it available. So we are conservative in terms of the data that we show you to make sure that it is the most reliable data at your disposal. We'll go back up to the top here. And let's see. And one other piece that I want to point out is, if going back to districts, if you wanted to find all the district about your, all the data about your district, you can do that here. And rather than search by the topic, you're looking by the district. Very similar. You can click into the county where your district is, and then bring up your district. And I'm just going to click over to another tab. That page would look like this. So this approach gives you all the data that is available on kids data for your district. This includes the youth and schools data as well as other data. So it's bringing you more than just the youth and schools that we're trying to focus on today. You you would select the category of data that you want over here, or if you just simply want to see all the data all at once, then you can click down here to see all the data that's available to you. Also, you can look at a district fact sheet in which we have compiled a two-pager about some high-level findings, what we think are key findings about the district, to compare the district percentages with the state of California. And with that, I do want to, just to wrap back to the beginning. So to find the data, it's at kidsdata.org /youth in schools, and that will bring you to this list, or in the search function that you can find on any page, you can just enter specifically what you want to find. And with that, I'll pass it back to Alice.
Thank you, Lori, for that great overview. We hope these data will inspire you to take action, support your grant writing, and inform your programs. You can reach both speakers at the email addresses listed here. This concludes the briefing portion of our webinar.